There are two Jewish stories about the origin of humanity in the first book of the Torah, the book of Genesis. And Soloveitchik, as an Orthodox rabbi, begins the essay by explaining that there is no need in Orthodox Judaism to experience the two stories as a contradiction or a conflict. He writes that the two different stories of the first person in Genesis, what seem to be stories about two different people, are in actuality stories about two parts of the human. We are both masterful and majestic, he writes, and inadequate and alienated. The human experience can be so many things: beautiful, exciting, love-filled, awesome, and satisfying, for example, and ugly, brutal, heartbreaking, terrifying, and lonely as well. I want to begin my reflections this morning by reading to you from a pastoral letter that I wrote yesterday to families of young children at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. I'm quoting myself here. Dear families, this week I have been preparing a sermon to preach for the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu about how we accompany each other in a world that has such capacity for beauty, love, and goodness, and that at the same time has such a capacity for destructiveness, brutality, and evil. The sermon was inspired by Alanis Morissette's song Ablaze. This song came across my social media feed, and I was so unexpectedly moved by watching Morissette look at her daughter and saying, "My mission is to keep the light in your eyes ablaze." The news of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death last night and all the questions that it renews about the tractability of the direction this country is headed has shed yet more light on this challenge. So I want to say to all of you this week, this is sacred work you all are doing, this work of raising children who are awakened to the capacity of the world for beauty, love, and goodness, including their own, and who are prepared to confront destruction and evil and join with others to love a new world into being. End quote. Since now I've shared with you the video that inspired this sermon, let me just say that I'm not even sure I share Alanis Morissette's assessment of the nature of the human dilemma. But I think part of what I found so moving about the video for me, as someone whose children are now almost grown and at the same time at an especially tender age, is the reminder of the complicated task of introducing young people to a world that is so many things, a world of both creation and destruction, a beautiful, terrible world. How in this beautiful, terrible world do we remain awakened to the capacity of the world for beauty, love, and goodness, including our own? How do we prepare ourselves to confront destruction and evil? How do we join with others to love a new world into being? There are so many ways we could answer these questions. They are essential questions for our faith communities, and they offer no easy task. It's one of the reasons that we come together to do it. One of the reasons we build communities in which we and our children can make meaning from it all. It's one of the reasons we make covenants and give promises that help us be connected to that which is life-giving. Though we could speak of many today, let's consider just two pilot lights, to quote Morissette, that we can carry in our pockets for times when those in our community lose their lights in their eyes and alienation and hopelessness take over. The first pilot light I will draw from Morissette's song, and the second from the reading Martina shared with us a few minutes ago, The Wonder of a Fist by the Reverend Teresa Inez Soto, which comes from a book I most highly recommend, fittingly titled Spilling the Light. Definitely get yourself a copy. If these questions I have been asking this morning are essential questions of the religious community, these pilot lights, though only two of many available to us, may be essential answers, transportable sources of power, of energy that can awaken us to the capacity for goodness in the world, harness our capacity to confront that which is destructive, and flow through us such that a new world is loved into being. The Reverend Rebecca Parker talks about lifespan religious education as our humanization in a dehumanizing world. According to the Reverend Marjorie Bowen Wheatley, its end can be measured in the alignment of what we say we value and our effectiveness in the process of social transformation. In that spirit, the first of our two pilot lights. Alanis Morissette says, keep the core connected to the oneness. And I'm going to nuance that a little bit because I'm not writing a singable song for my children that I can publish on an album to release to the world. There's no power analysis in an assessment that says that the problem is that we've forgotten we're made of the same cells and that we live a lie of separation and division, even if it represents something true. Just as an example, and not to take us too far afield, if we take too seriously this assessment that division is the root of the problem, we can easily end up in a place that treats systemic racism as something that can be addressed if only, quote, both sides had compassion for one another. And this, I think, is a damaging place to be, one that, among other problems, asks a great deal of people who are harmed with little in return. And while it is true that someone would not harm another if they had true compassion for the pain of that person, racism is too complex for a singular treatment such as mutual compassion. So again, staying a little bit on this nuancing, I would argue, for instance, that when we study, learn, and grapple with policing as a force, as a structure, when we teach children honestly that policing as we know it, at least I can say regarding the mainland, was created in order to legalize some form of enslavement after slavery was no longer legal, and has continued to systemically harm communities of color and especially Black communities, we and our children become better prepared to decouple ourselves from structures of policing while we help build alternative structures of restorative justice and assurance of community well-being. And that is not accomplished from mutual compassion per se. But Morissette ties her advice for children to something deeper, which is a connection that goes beyond understanding and is a cord to the source of life. A person need not have had wonderful parents to tap into the power of connection that Morissette sings about to her children. It is the belonging found in the pull of the earth and us toward one another. A person need not have had wonderful parents to tap into the creative power that is, to use the words of Khalil Gibran, life's longing for itself. This connection to life's source is one pilot light, and a second can be illustrated in the wonderment of a fist. From our reading this morning. Yes, let me also hold up my fist and look on it in wonder. What can a fist, a hand hold? What can it let go, cascading through open fingers? Let me use my adult fist to rise, to crush my own cruel, insincere doubt. Let me have a Yael fist of iron to pound a stake into the future we will build. Yes, small one, yes, the wonder of a fist. This pilot light is the bodies we have been given in many forms. bodies which receive that which is life-given, even sometimes unbeknownst to us, bodies that strive for life and that long for one another, for the living that is in each other. These bodies are repulsed by life-destroying, life-damaging forces. If we're not taught differently at a young age, they make our stomachs turn when we encounter suffering. They compel us to soothe and care for one another. Can we, as our poet, tapped into bodies which demand only what fosters life, pound stakes into a new future, destroying that which would destroy us along the way? My children are older now, and I have seen those moments when the lights in their eyes have faded by the cruelty and battery around us. And I have seen them, when we have been lucky, brighten again, arise and waking up to new possibilities for life. I wish this for you, and I wish it for your community, that you can rekindle that which has been diminished using the pilot lights in your pocket, your belonging connection, and your body that tolerates only that which nourishes life. I wish for you that this rekindling channels a power strong enough to confront evil and love something new into being. But here's something we know about the lights in our pockets. We carry them for one another, not just for ourselves. We accompany each other through the world that is both beautiful and terrible. This, like the raising of children, is sacred work. Waking one another up to the capacity of the world for beauty and goodness, including our own. Confronting destruction and evil, and joining with others to love a new world into being. So may it be.